A rough man with no bottom line who spoils his wife in a sullen and coquettish manner. A pretty educated youth with a delicate appearance and a fierce heart. 1v1 double Cleanliness+Sweet Pet+Space+Rebirth+Face beating no overnight. During his escape, Anan jumped off the cliff. When she didn't want to open her eyes again and wake up, she arrived in the 1980s of China. Dressed as a doormat that gave birth to a stepmother and a stepfather, Xiao Transparent was forced to give up her fiancé. She was also taken to a remote place by her stepmother and stepsister to become an educated youth. Fortunately, her space came with her. Anan. Going to the countryside. Okay, before we leave, it will cause a huge upheaval in the Gu family. Let the scumbag father, stepmother, and 2 stepsisters all suffer, and take away all the money and property deeds from the family. Leave a shell for the stepmother and let her go to hell. As for the scumbag dad, don't worry about it. Then Anan went to the countryside without any hesitation. When she arrived in the countryside and saw the other person's face and the indifference in their eyes, her face instantly turned red like the burning clouds in the sky, a bright red. Anan wants to cry without tears, sob how broad pa. Can she escape? The fact proves that she can't escape at all. When Zhao Mingyu first saw this delicate educated youth, he felt that she was so strange. Even with just a glance, he began to blush and heartbeat. Is this because he was moved? From then on, after the newly arrived Zhao Jiqing arrived in the village, being a kind gentleman became his habit. For him, spoiling is the right thing, even if the other person is unattainable, they can only be dragged into his nest. Teasing and pulling chapter not long after. Just as Anan finally adapted to living in the countryside, one day, the kind-hearted gentleman suddenly lowered her onto the trunk of a tree and activated the teasing mode. Everyone has come, do you still want to leave? Anan's face turned red and he said, hey, what does it have to do with you? Zhao Mingyu's face stiffened for a moment, and he grinned, that's a big deal. If you steal my heart, you have to take responsibility. Follow me home to see my in-laws. Anan looked dumbfounded and said, you. Stinky and shameless. Zhao Mingyu, if you want to be shameless, you just need a wife. After saying that, he dragged his little wife home to meet his parents. From then on, Anan lived a group pet life, favored by her husband and her in-laws. Special note. This article is a fictional text, with self-opening ideas. All content in the article is fictional, please do not substitute it for history, do not rely on research. Keywords of the novel. Favored by the 80% rough man, she is both soft and strong without pop-ups. Favored by the 80% rough man, she is both soft and strong with no pop-ups. Download the complete set of TXT. Favored by the 80% rough man, she is both soft and strong with no pop-ups. Read the latest chapters of the 80% rough man. Chapter 1. Just as I woke up, Na abused my stepmother wildly. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Just as I woke up, Na abused my stepmother wildly. Anan thought he was already dead. After all, jumping off a steep cliff, even if one's body was not smashed to pieces, it had already been bitten by wolves and cheetahs. What's the point of living alone when her parents and siblings are gone? It's better to go underground and reunite with them earlier. Her family had all left, which instantly overshadowed her previously happy and colorful life. For her, this was undoubtedly the most painful and desperate thing. So, facing the relentless pursuers behind her, she didn't hesitate at all and jumped off the cliff. Parents, siblings, Anan has come to see you. Before losing consciousness, she secretly thought to herself. But what's particularly strange is that she even felt like she was completely curled up, but for some reason, she actually started dreaming for nothing. Still, heartbreaking dreams. In her dream, she was unexpectedly rescued by a tall young man with a wheat-colored skin, who grabbed her with a big hand. This person's facial features are clearly defined, with a high and straight nose bridge, eyebrows painted in ink, and a slightly curved mouth with a hint of meaning. When those black eyes glared at people, there was a mischievous aura in their eyes. The man hugged her and slowly landed in mid-air. In a daze, Anan had already been pushed against the tree trunk behind her. In an instant, the other person's narrow and long eyes had already fallen on her face, wandering around with a hint of thought-provoking. "You're young, I can't imagine why you're looking for death." His deep voice fell, and his head tilted towards him, whispering in her ear, "Why not?" Boom. The meaningful words made Anan's small face instantly turn red like blood. You. Just as Anan was shyly and nervously swallowing his saliva, clenching his small hand and planning to give this disciple a few consecutive blows, he suddenly felt a sharp curse in his ear, as if it was about to penetrate her eardrums, and his arm was also twisted in pain. She brushed the floor and then opened her eyes to wake up. Entering the curtain was a middle-aged woman with a fierce and malevolent face, her cheeks trembling and her inverted triangular eyes emitting a harsh and malevolent light. She was pulling her arm forward with one hand on her hips and the other hand forcefully. "Cheap girl, how dare you rob a man from my daughter? I don't want to strangle you. Now I am the master of the whole family, and even your father only listens to me. I advise you to be sensible and let Lu Jingping go, and don't want to come back." The woman twisted and pinched Anan, and foamed with pride. With a pinch of his long nails, 2 red marks appeared on Anan's thin arm. Every time Lu Mei sees this face that looks very much like Jiang Shiyue, her heart feels like burning, and she hates Anan extremely. Little slut, she's just as annoying as that seductive girl of hers. Just as Anan was calming his mind and using his internal mental techniques to regulate his breathing, a burning pain came from his arm. Suddenly, a sharp light flickered in her black eyes, and she raised her hand to give the woman who wanted to continue pinching her a few slaps. Pop pop. In an instant, 4 or 5 loud applause rang out extremely clearly in this small and dark room. Anan's eyes turned cold, and his voice was as cold as ice. "Hit me." The ending was raised, and my gaze was fixed on the malicious woman in front of me. Suddenly, those eyes seemed to become soul-grabbing, icy cold. "You." Lu Mei couldn't help but be dumbfounded, staring at Anan with wide eyes as if seeing a ghost. She couldn't believe that the despicable hoof in front of her, who had been bullied by her and her 2 daughters for nearly 10 years, actually started beating her. Babies, meeting is fate. If you like this book, don't forget to leave a vote message. In the new book period, data and your support are very important for the author. I hope the babies can provide more support. Na Yumamoto, end of this chapter. Did you agree to hit me in chapter 2? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Did you agree to hit me in chapter 2? Half loud. Lu Mei finally realized it. She touched her fiery face and glared at Anan, cursing, "Little slut, you're trying to kill me. Even my mother dares to beat me, you're so cowardly." She spoke with hatred, and then Lu Mei reached out and grabbed Anan's face. But seeing, Anan quickly flipped over and spun, kicking the woman in the stomach with a fierce and fast movement. Lu Mei felt as if she had first taken off, then smashed through the old wooden door behind her, and then fell to the ground along with the broken door pieces. A loud bang. She fell flat on all fours, her obese body lying on the ground with her face facing down, and her 2 big yellow teeth fell off instantly. Ouch. Ouch hey. 2 front teeth were hard knocked off, with blood streaming down her spine. Lu Mei screamed in pain and tried to sit up while supporting her waist, only to hear a crisp click, and her waist flickered again. "Did you agree to hit me?" At this moment, Anan walked over with deep eyes and stepped on Lu Mei's face. Anju looked down at the middle-aged woman on the ground from a high vantage point, with a cold voice emanating from his small mouth. Then, with a forceful turn under her feet, she heard. Ow! Lu Mei lay on the ground in a disheveled state, bleeding profusely from her mouth and suffering severe pain in her left cheek. The piercing pain brought her a sense of despair on the brink of death. You let go of me. With just a few words, she almost exhausted all her strength before finishing off Anan. Ha! Upon hearing these words, Anan suddenly smiled, but his voice was particularly cold. Command me, you're not qualified yet. After speaking, the force under her feet increased once again. Next second. The painful screams instantly echoed through every corner of the Gu family, then penetrated the roof and soared into the clouds. Just when Lu Mei thought she was about to die, the foot that was pressing hard on her face seemed to finally have a conscience, willing to open up her path of survival. However, just as the force on her cheeks had loosened, Anan grabbed her hair and suddenly lifted it up. In an instant, their eyes met. Inexplicably, Lu Mei saw a killing intent in Anan's eyes. Very strong, very strong. As if she would really kill herself without mercy. Anan glanced at Lu Mei and lifted the corner of her lips lightly. Is my arm easy to pinch? Lu Mei's face was filled with tears and blood, and her scalp felt even more painful as if it were torn apart. The sound of pain came from eating. She quickly tilted her head high and looked at the cold face in front of her, which turned pale with fear. Seeing Anan's eyes turn cold, she quickly shook her head as if dissatisfied, and then tried nodding again. No. 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 It's not easy to pinch. It's not easy to pinch at all. Upon hearing the sound, Lu Mei shook her head violently and cried, pleading with Anan. Mom was wrong. I shouldn't have hit you just now. Please forgive me. I will treat you well in the future. Whatever you want is fine. After finishing speaking, she thought for a moment and then said, Don't you like Lu Jinping? That mother is in charge, we won't let it go. You don't have to give it to your second sister, or you can marry into the Lu family and enjoy it. Look, okay. Little slut, how dare you do this to me? When your father comes back, I will make sure he kills you. Not bad. It sounds quite nice on the lips, but inside you, Anan's lips curved into a deep smile. But you're thinking about how to kill me. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. The little sorceress regenerates into a little poor child. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. The little sorceress regenerates into a little poor child. Her voice was resolute, as if she had a mind-reading ability, able to see through Lu Mei's heart. Lu Mei's voice trembled as she replied to her, No, no. You are my daughter, and as a mother, I can't even cherish you in time. How could I want you to die? When my mother, do you also deserve it? After Anan finished speaking coldly, he slapped her old face fiercely. Her face was slapped red and swollen until Lu Mei completely fainted before she let go. Then, she let go of her strength and with a loud bang, Lu Mei fell back in an instant, her broad body shaking the cement floor. The noise in the room disappeared, and Anan finally had time to sit down and sort out the memories in her mind. Just now, just as she was starting to tidy up Lu Mei, waves of memories and various images suddenly flooded into her mind. However, the amount of information is so large that she has to constantly use her internal mental skills to suppress it. There is a wicked woman in front of her, and if she dares to digest the memories in her mind at this time, she is sure to be beaten to death by the other party. Fortunately, the heavens favored her and eventually allowed her to persevere, if not she's afraid that she might just be reborn and die again. However, thinking of the identity and various experiences of this body, Anan couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Sigh, I'm afraid even her parents couldn't imagine that their precious daughter jumped off a cliff and came directly to a place called Huaxia Kingdom over 1,000 years later, right? He even transformed from a wealthy official into a pitiful person. This girl is also called Anan, but compared to herself, her 18 years of life can only be described as pitiful. Her mother fell ill and passed away when the little girl was almost 8 years old, and her father married Lu Mei, a struggling widow with 2 daughters, 2 months later. Bitter fate. Gu Anan doesn't think it's very similar, maybe there's an unknown truth hidden in between. As soon as Lu Mei entered the door, she took over the job of the little girl's biological mother and became a formal worker in the factory. In front of Gu Jiangwo and the leaders of the unit, she patted her chest and swore confidently that she would treat her original body as her own and treat her biological daughter equally. However, behind the scenes, she and her 2 daughters had been oppressing her original body for a long time. If it weren't for the neighbors watching, Lu Mei wouldn't even let her original body continue reading. And the original father is even more scumbag. After only half a month since his daughter-in-law entered the house, he was tricked by Lu Mei into scoring points that were unclear in the east, and west. He was like a rake in the ear, and all the matters at home were left to Lu Mei alone. Gradually, he became worse and worse towards his own daughter, but on the contrary, he became better and better towards those 2 stepdaughters. They bought everything they wanted, while his original self could only watch. This time, it was the first time in the history of her original body to resist, but unfortunately her body was too thin and small to be a match for her stepmother and stepsister. Before she could step out, she was knocked unconscious by her stepmother using a stick to hit her head. As for the reason, the day before yesterday, Ginchen suddenly discovered that her stepsister and her fiancé had gotten together. She saw them hooked up, but she bumped into each other and couldn't come forward with a theory. In the end, she was severely humiliated by her stepsister and fiancé. At that time, the original body had the idea of suicide, but when she thought about it, she felt unwilling. So she wanted to expose her stepsister and fiancé, but didn't want to. The original plan had not yet been implemented, and Xiaoming was taken away by his stepmother with a stick. She sighed silently. She came from the kingdom of Mengluo over 1,000 years ago and was a pampered young lady loved by her parents and siblings. However, she was not at all coquettish in her heart. On the contrary, she concealed a demonic side. It was better not to provoke her. Once she was provoked, she would either die or be disabled. The new book has opened, I hope babies can collect and support it more. Rest assured to enter the pit and update steadily every day. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. The Principles of the Little Witch. Everything she grabs is her own. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. The Principles of the Little Witch. Everything she grabs is her own. Gu Anan leaned against the bedside to digest all the memories of the little girl, sort out her thoughts, and after knowing the direction and way of life of this earth, she raised her hand to her heart and silently recited a sentence. Go with peace of mind. I will help you fulfill your unfulfilled wishes before your death, and I will also fight for your hatred if we don't pull all these people down to hell one by one. She won't be the little witch Gu Anan. At the moment when the oath was taken, Gu Anan clearly noticed that her body had suddenly become much lighter. She couldn't help but raise her lips, as if it was quite good now. Glancing at Lu Mei, who was still lying unconscious on the ground, she walked out of this dark and cramped room. Gu Anan walked directly into the room that belonged to her original self but was occupied by 2 stepsisters, locked the door with her back, and finally calmed down to contact her astrological space. In no time, the images in the space came to mind one by one. Gu Anan glanced at everything with her mind and saw that everything was there, not a single thing was missing. She felt relieved. The next second, she quickly took out a cup of Lingquan water from the space and took it down. The Lingquan water in the starry space has the effects of quickly restoring physical strength, healing wounds, dark wounds, beauty, and whitening. And at this moment, she is in need of it. After drinking the spiritual spring water, Gu Anan sat quietly on the bed to regulate her breath, using her mind techniques to quickly spread the spiritual spring water throughout her body until her strength was fully restored. Only then did she slowly open her pair of dark and bright phoenix eyes. A hint of coldness flashed through my eyes and immediately returned to my original state. At the next moment, the extremely unpleasant smell from his body rushed in. Anan quickly got out of bed and flashed into the space, went directly to the hot spring pool to take a bath, and looked at the petite and charming reflection in the water. Anan's lower lip curled imperceptibly, and his indifferent eyes seemed to infuse magic, instantly becoming enchanting and dazzling. Her lips suddenly curled up and she slowly lifted her eyelids. Under the clear reflection, the thin and fair face was dazzling and charming, bright and charming. Suddenly, her cherry-like mouth slightly raised, and the smile in her eyes deepened. "Lu Mei, don't you and your second daughter want to marry the Lu family?" "So, this girl now declares. All dreams are as you wish. Are you mother and daughter ready to enjoy your wealth and prosperity?" A cold light flashed in Anan's eyes, and he immediately put away his thoughts. She stepped out of the hot spring and returned to the main building where she usually rested. When she returned to her bedroom, she took out makeup tools and carefully disguised the skin tone on her face and the wound on her head. In no time, Anan completely disguised herself and looked at herself in the mirror with satisfaction, almost identical to her original appearance. She then confidently flashed out of space. She directly opened the wooden wardrobe that her stepsister had snatched away, and saw that there were quite a few things inside. Anan reached out and picked up a brand new brag long dress to put on, wearing a new pair of sandals. The skirt is a bit too big, but it's okay to tie it with a belt. The consistent principle of the little witch is that what she snatches is her own, especially since these things already belong to her. Anan is not polite after changing clothes. Anan didn't delay any longer and quickly left the Gu family to go out. Tomorrow morning is the day when the latest batch of educated youth will go to the countryside, and she was unlucky enough to have her name reported by the malicious stepmother and stepsister. The time left for her is very limited, she must hurry up. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Finding a backer, Little White Flower Skill Get. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Finding a backer, Little White Flower Skill Get. Anan's goal was very clear. As soon as he stepped out of the Gu family courtyard, he headed straight for Auntie's house not far away. This aunt has a good relationship with her original mother, and she usually treats her original body well. Once she encounters Lu Mei and her daughter bullying her original body, she will step forward. In recent years, if it weren't for the support of this Aunt Wu and another aunt, I wouldn't have been able to graduate from high school. Anan's footsteps were fast. The Lingquan water she had taken before had completely transformed her body, and with the help of her internal mental skills, she could now punch the dead wild boar with a single punch. Arriving at Aunt Wu's house and looking at the courtyard door in front of her, she took a deep breath, adjusted her emotions, and entered the play in 1 second. I saw her eyes turn red, tears welled up faintly, and she looked pitiful and helpless. Bang! 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 Oh, who is it? Here it is. As soon as she finished speaking, a woman who looked around 389 years old walked out of the house and quickly walked over to open the courtyard door. Anan. Seeing that Anan was knocking on the door, the woman couldn't help but laugh in surprise. She quickly pulled Anan into the room and said, "Come in and sit down. Why did you finally come to your aunt's house and come knocking?" The woman smiled gently as she pulled Anan into the living room. "You sit down first, I'll pour you a glass of sugar water to drink." Woo-woo. Just as the woman turned around to pour water, suddenly, her waist was embraced by Anan's hand. Immediately after, heartbroken sobs could be heard behind her. "Auntie, please help me. Woo-woo. The little girl is crying so badly." The sound of crying was intermittent, and the tears were hazy in her eyes. Her appearance was extremely pitiful, and she fully demonstrated Little White Flower's exclusive skills. As soon as the woman heard the crying, her heart couldn't help but tighten. She quickly turned around to look at Gu Anan, only to find that in just a few seconds, the little girl was already in tears, unable to cry. And the most eye-catching thing is that Gu Anan, who was still doing well yesterday, now has an extremely glaring large blood lump on his head. Oh my goodness! This scene instantly hurt the woman's eyes. She quickly asked Gu Anan, "Anan, tell your aunt, who hit the wound on your head. Also, did Lu Mei and her daughter bully you again? You tell Auntie, Auntie will help you make the decision." Previously, when I saw the girl come to visit, she was so happy that she didn't notice the wound on Anan's head. Now, when I suddenly saw it, it scared Wu Chunhua a lot. The blood on this girl's head looks a bit scary. How cruel was the other party to beat Anan like this? What about Gu Jiangwo? Does he just ignore it? Gu Anan looked at her with teary eyes and said intermittently, "Auntie, the injury on my head was caused by Aunt Lu's beating. Her stick almost killed me. Her second daughter and Lu Jingping got together. I bumped into them the day before yesterday, and I approached them to argue. However, the two of them humiliated me and said that I was like a toad eating swan meat. I didn't know where to stand subsequently." She recounted how over the years, Lu Mei's mother and daughter had oppressed her original self, and how they had collaborated with her scumbag father to abuse and coldly violence her original self, including Lu Mei's second daughter and her fiancé's promiscuity, adding fuel to the fire. Zai Zai is meticulous, without any sighs, and has explained it all over again in an instant. Wu Chunhua's beautiful eyes had completely widened. "Babies, Xia Xia has already set up the bowls and is waiting for you." End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Planning and Tackling Troubles. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Planning and Tackling Troubles. For a long time, Wu Chunhua only realized it, and then, with anger in her eyes, she cursed, "I knew she wasn't a good person. As a mother, she didn't have a good character. Where can her daughter's character improve? Their mother and daughter are really shameless. Although she knew about the marriage of the Lu family and your mother was there, Vice Factory Director Lu and his wife personally came to settle it. But now Wu Chunhua's angry chest rapidly rose and fell, and her anger burned to the point where she felt extremely uncomfortable. Halfway through her words, she was so angry that she couldn't continue. "Anan, let's go. I'll take you to the factory to find Uncle Yang and let him make the decision for you." As she finished speaking, she didn't even care about pouring water and pulled Gu Anan out. "Auntie, listen to me first." Gu Anan grabbed her hand and quickly said, "I have to go to the countryside as an educated youth early tomorrow morning. I don't know when I will be able to return, so I want to withdraw from the Lu family before leaving and seek justice for myself." "What? Going to the countryside?" Upon hearing these words, Wu Chunhua immediately widened her eyes in surprise. "This must have been done by that poisonous woman again, isn't it?" She gritted her teeth and said, "The wicked widow who has blackened her heart, see if I don't tear up her pig intestines." After finishing speaking angrily, Wu Chunhua turned around and rushed to the side, holding a broom. Ran. Cough. Gu Anan raised his hand to his forehead, suppressed his laughter, and coughed lightly. "Auntie, don't be angry. It's not worth damaging your body for that kind of popularity. Wait until I finish speaking, let's consider it in the long run, okay?" She removed the broom from Wu Chunhua's hand and set it aside, then pulled her to sit on the wooden sofa. "Since my mother fell ill and passed away, you can see what kind of life I have been living in the Gu family over the years, how much injustice and abuse I have suffered, and how much humiliation I have endured. I used to be too foolish, thinking that I would be better behaved and help my family with more things. My father and Aunt Lu will eventually discover my goodness. Unfortunately, I was wrong. My submission and concession not only failed to earn the love of my biological father and stepmother, but also the friendly relationship of my stepsister. Instead, they intensified their efforts and used different methods to oppress me. Then, she paused and continued speaking, if it weren't for this time, her stick completely woke me up, I'm afraid I would have been foolishly oppressed by them for a lifetime. Now, that home is no longer worth remembering. From now on, I don't want to have any further involvement with that family. So I plan to go to the countryside to become an educated youth. When I go to the countryside, my household registration will also move with me. This way, I can break away from the Gu family, get rid of their control and constraints. Wu Chunhua looked at her and frowned, but girl, the countryside is really tough. Your sister Yang has written back more than once, saying that they are in the countryside and have to get up before 6 o'clock every day to do farm work. Those tasks are both hard and tiring, and many girls are so tired that they can't bear it. They often sit in the ground and cry loudly because they can't finish their tasks. Upon hearing this, Gu Anan showed no signs of wavering. On the contrary, her eyes were filled with determination. I know that life in the countryside may be even more difficult than it is now, but as long as I am willing to work hard, I will definitely get better slowly. And Auntie, do you think if I don't go to the countryside and continue to stay at the Gu family, I will have a good life? After speaking, she calmly gazed at Wu Chunhua. This after listening to her words, Wu Chunhua fell silent for a moment. After a while, she reached out and grabbed Gu Anan's hands, sighing and asking, have you made up your mind? As you said, it's hard to come back after going to the countryside. Her daughter has been going to the countryside for over 3 years, but still hasn't found a way back to the city. Well, I understand very clearly and what I'm doing. Gu Anan nodded with an unusually firm attitude. But Auntie, I would like to trouble you to help me a few things after I go to the countryside tomorrow. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The Stepmother Crying and Telling the Black. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The stepmother crying and telling the black. In a moment of shock, he opened his mouth wide. At this moment, Wu Chunhua was completely dumbfounded. She widened her eyes and stared straight at Gu Anan's face, inexplicably feeling that in that moment, Anan was very unfamiliar, but also became mature and knew how to think. Half loud. You mean. Her tongue was a bit tangled, and even her voice couldn't help but become stuttering. Gu Anan answered her truthfully, yes. Although the marriage of the Lu family is not uncommon to me, and Lu Jingping is not worthy of me. But this is what they owe me, isn't it? If it weren't for my fate not to be cut off, then by the time Lu Mei hit me hard with that stick, I would have been gone. Her gaze was fixed on Wu Chunhua, and the large blood lump on her head was the best evidence. Okay, Auntie will definitely help you with it. Upon hearing this, Wu Chunhua instinctively looked up at the injury on her head and made a decision immediately. Later, she reminded Gu Anan, by the way, girl, when you arrive in the countryside, remember to come and report your safety, so that I can also send you the money for transferring my job position. I will. Auntie, thank you. After speaking, Gu Anan stood up conveniently and bowed to Wu Chunhua. Wu Chunhua was stunned for a moment, then quickly reached out his hand and grabbed her, saying, You child, are you trying to crush me? Your mother and I are good friends, and she is no longer here. So it's my duty to take care of you. You've been suffering these years. At first, we saw Gu Jiangwo being honest and enthusiastic, thinking he was reliable. Who knew? Halfway through the sentence, she paused for a moment, then let out a sigh. Gu Anan's eyes flickered lightly, as if he had already noticed the change in Wu Chunhua's gaze. It was hard not to deny his true identity. Is there any hidden information? She flashed a faint light in her eyes, but her face remained calm and composed. I'm fine, no matter how hard it is, it's already over, Guan said with a hint of sadness. Auntie, then I'll go back and wait for you first. I guess that scumbag dad should also come back for lunch at this time, right? Maybe the Lu family also came along. With this in mind, Gu Anan stood up conveniently, but before taking a step, she whispered in Wu Chunhua's ear. Auntie, it seems that Lu Jingping has boasted more than once in front of his friends before. His family's savings are at least 20,000 yuan or more. He said that his mother told him this personally. At this moment, Wu Chunhua was completely stunned. Later, when she regained her senses and planned to ask more specifically, she realized that Gu Anan had already left. However, she took this matter to heart, and when her man returned from the factory, Wu Chunhua turned around and told the other party about this speculation. Speaking of Gu Anan's side, when she came out of Wu Chunhua's house, she happily returned to the Gu family. However, as soon as she stepped into the yard with her feet, she heard a mournful voice coming from inside the house. Wu Wu, Lao Gu, they all say that his stepmother is difficult to deal with. That's true. Can you tell me, I've been married to your Gu family for 10 years, and have I ever eaten less than her and lacked her clothes? I haven't even insulted her, have I? Give her a face, right? There are 4 children in my family who have formal jobs, just the 2 of us. I would rather work hard on my own, eat less, and support her until high school graduation. But she didn't want to end up feeling grateful and even hitting me, Wu Wu. My life is so hard. Lu Mei pretended to cry twice as she spoke. The voice howled loudly and loudly, but there was no tear in sight. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Scumbags Calculations. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Scumbags Calculations. In the past decade, I have worked hard to raise her, treating her as my own daughter. A few days ago, I saw that Anan would turn 18 in 3 more months and wanted to discuss a marriage with her, but she actually said she didn't want the Lu family's marriage. I advised her that as she was about to get married, quitting the marriage was not good for her reputation, but she refused to listen and threatened to just die. Then she picked up a stick and hit herself on the head. Fortunately, I reacted quickly enough to avoid making a big mistake. Otherwise, I'm afraid even if I jump into the sea, I won't be able to wash away my grievances. Lu Mei stood there crying and feeling aggrieved, wiping her tears with one hand and covering her face with the other, but the red palm print on her face could not be concealed. Immediately after, little White Flower also began to cry at this moment. Woo woo. Blame me, it's all my fault. If an Auntie beats me every day, bullies me, and scolds me as a procrastinator with a mother but no father, I'll hold back a little longer, maybe my mother won't be beaten by her. Gu Nana is crying so badly. She pinched her palms hard, and tears came as soon as she spoke. In just 2 or 3 seconds, everyone saw a pitiful tearful person with pear blossoms and rain. At this moment, Lu Jinping's eyes rolled and he also spoke up, Uncle Gu, Anan has indeed gone too far this time. Although Aunt Lu is not her biological mother, she has been with her for 10 years. Even if it's a cat or a dog, she has already developed feelings. But she's better off. Aunt Lu kindly discussed marriage with her. Not only did she get angry and threaten to divorce me, but she also knocked out Aunt's teeth. Besides, based on my Lu family's family background, what kind of daughter-in-law do I want to marry? I don't insist on her taking care of her safety. If she really doesn't want to marry, then that's fine. Let's forget about this marriage. It has to be said that he added fuel and vinegar to the fire at the right time. Gu Jiangwo's anger burned in an instant, and his hands clenched with a gurgling sound. Sensing that Gu Jiangwo's anger had already burned to the top of her head, the hint of displeasure in Lu Mei's heart that Lu Jinping had compared her to a cat or a dog disappeared completely. For her, as long as it can bring bad luck to Gu Anan, it would be worth it for her to suffer some injustice. Suddenly, Lu Jinping's mother's eyes were filled with a strong sense of schadenfreude, but her face let out a feigned cough. That old Gu, look, your family and even dares to beat her mother. Such a violent daughter-in-law, our family really dares not marry her. In addition, Anan seems to be determined not to marry. Since that's the case, should we let go of the marriage agreement that our 2 families made back then? How could I have thought about it? No way. You can't leave. If you leave at this time, it will definitely be bad for our Gu family and the reputation of the Lu family. If I marry, I will marry Jinping brother instead. Upon hearing her future mother-in-law say this, Gu Nana couldn't hold her ground and her innermost thoughts blurted out instantly. Upon hearing her youngest daughter say this, Lu Mei immediately took over the conversation and said, yes, it would be my Nana marrying her over. Anyway, she has already taken the opportunity to handle the wine. Maybe within 9 months, your Lu family will have a grandson to hold. Her words were somewhat suggestive, implying that she could dismiss Anan, but her youngest daughter must marry into their Lu family, otherwise she will definitely not comply. The faces of the 2 members of the Lu family darkened, suddenly turning green, purple, and black, especially Lu Jinping's mother, whose face was gloomy and terrifying. She despises Gu Anan, but for a widow's daughter, she looks down on her even more. If it weren't for her own son's lack of competitiveness and being easily hit by that wave/hoof/sun, she wouldn't have agreed to let Gu Nana in without saying anything to old Lu. With this thought in mind, Lu Jinping's mother calmly said, it's okay to change people. However, there's not a penny in this dowry. Whether or not to marry, it's up to you. Anyway, if this matter is exposed, the only one who will suffer in the end will be you. Upon hearing this, Gu Nana looked at Lu Jinping with tears in her eyes and pursed her lips, appearing extremely aggrieved. Lu Jinping felt a little heartbroken as he looked at her teary expression, but when it comes to money, he was very persistent. I listen to my mother, don't give dowry, and even save on drinking, he said. Also, your family must bring a dowry, including the 500 yuan that my mother borrowed from Aunt Jiang back then. You don't have to repay it anymore, just treat it as Nana's bottom line. Anyway, when she gets married, we will become a family, and the money will be the same for anyone. Jinping brother, no way. In an instant, the voices of both mother and daughter sounded simultaneously. Humph. We can't pull it down. Anyway, it's your daughter who's at a loss, not my son. Lu Jinping's mother Jiang Mei immediately snorted with a dark face and refused to give in. Seeing her future mother-in-law's face looking very unhappy, Gu Nana let out a thud in her heart and quickly softened, I'll get married, I'll get married. Subsequently, she quickly tugged at her own mother and told her not to say anything more. If the Lu family really wanted to back out, then she would be done. Lu Mei and Gu Jiangwo's faces couldn't help but darken upon seeing the situation, and they were very dissatisfied with the attitude of the Lu family. However, considering the identity of the Lu family's couple, they had no choice but to give up and admit it. Jiang Mei looked at Gu Jiangwo and his wife with a clear and aloof expression, then pursed her lips and said, since you all have no objections, then that's all for this marriage. Auntie, you have to make decisions for me. Crazy scum walking up, end of this chapter. Chapter 9. The whole thing starts, the scumbags start walking. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. The whole thing starts, the scumbags start walking. Before Lu Jinping's mother could finish speaking, Gu Anan's voice filled with grievances had already sounded outside the door. She burst into tears as if she didn't want money, then turned around and stumbled towards Wu Chunhua and his wife. Auntie, Uncle Yang, Wu. As if startled, Gu Anan grabbed Wu Chunhua's arm and cried even more mournfully than Little White Flower, especially with her shaky appearance, performing extremely well. Anan, what's wrong? Who has wronged you? Tell your aunt and Uncle Yang, I see who is so bold and dares to bully people in broad daylight. Wu Chunhua received a hint from Gu Anan's gaze and immediately asked. Her voice was very loud, and everyone in the room could hear it clearly. Auntie Lu said that my second sister was pregnant with a stinky beggar's child and even wanted to marry her son. She then went crazy and scolded her. She scolded her mother and daughter, saying they were the same, water/sex/yang/flower. I tried to persuade her, but she threatened me again, sobbing. Gu Anan only thunders without rain, which sounds desolate and crying. However, when it comes to filing a lawsuit against him, it is quite impressive. After hearing her words, the whole group in the room suddenly turned dark. Unexpectedly, no one expected that Gu Anan would hide outside the door and eavesdrop, let alone that the factory director and his wife would come to visit the Gu family at this time. Moreover, what made both families feel anxious and nervous was that Gu Anan verbally accused Wu Chunhua of the child in Gu Nana's belly, saying that it was not Lu Jingping's. At the thought of this, both the Lu family's eyes narrowed. Jiang Mei glared sharply at Gu Nana and said, "You better make sure you're pregnant with the seeds of my Lu family, otherwise Auntie, you." Upon hearing this, Gu Nana's face instantly turned pale like paper, afraid that her future in-laws would misunderstand. She quickly proved her innocence, her voice sharp and piercing. "Auntie, don't listen to her nonsense. My sister is crazy, talking nonsense. I only have Jingping as a man, and the child is his." After speaking, she rushed out of the hall with a hot head, pointing at Gu Anan and scolding him, "Gu Anan, you slut, why do you slander me? My child's father is not a stinky beggar, he is Lu Jingping, the son of Deputy Factory Director Lu." "Shut up." In an instant, several extremely angry shouts came out of the room. Immediately after, the Lu family and Gu Jiangwo walked out in a panic. Looking up, they saw the couple standing in the small courtyard, and their hearts tightened. Heart said, "It's over, it's over. Now with the two of them present, things can no longer be ambiguous." Gu Jiangwo quickly pulled out a smile that was even uglier than crying and nervously shouted, "Factory manager, Comrade Wu, why did you suddenly come over? Hee, that one, please come in quickly." Wu Chunhua looked at him with sarcastic eyes and sneered, "Oh, Gu Jiangwo, don't be fooling me here. Tell me what's going on with you, your good stepdaughter and Lu Jingping." Your stepdaughter, knowing that Lu Jingping is An's fiancée, deliberately flirted with him, causing her to have a big belly. What, you think Anan's mother is gone and no one is protecting her, so you think she's easy to handle and bully, right? Me, Gu Jiangwo's old face was red and black as described by Wu Chunhua, and his scalp was tingling from the gaze of her and Director Yang. "Lu Jihe, what do you say about this matter?" Director Yang glanced at Gu Jiangwo and then asked in an unfriendly tone. He carried his hands behind his back, and as he spoke, his extremely sharp gaze had already fallen on the Deputy Factory Director Lu Jihe. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Auntie, I choose to divorce. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Auntie, I choose to divorce. Misunderstanding. Lu Jihe's face stiffened slightly, his mind quickly changed, and then he quickly joked with a smile, "Factory director, this is completely a misunderstanding. Today, the two of us came with Jingping to discuss Jingping and An's marriage with Lao Gu. There's no other intention, really." As he spoke, he gave Gu Jiangwo a sharp sideways glance, his eyes somewhat gloomy, prompting him to quickly speak up and clarify. Gu Jiangwo received a threatening look from the deputy factory director and his wife, so he nodded and agreed, yes. Director Lu and his team think that Anan will turn 18 in 3 more months and want to arrange the banquet in advance. Lao Gu. Dad. What are you talking nonsense about? They're clearly saying, let me marry into the Lu family. Before Gu Nana could finish speaking, Gu Jiangwo grabbed her and covered her mouth with his big palm. Wu Chunhua saw the situation and directly sneered, "Oh, do you think An's ears are problematic, or do you think we both have deaf ears? We heard all those words just now, want to evade them. Okay, Anan, go find Director Luo from the street office and let them handle justice." "Well, okay, I'll go right now." Gu Anan nodded tearfully, then turned around and walked out. "Wait a minute. Don't go." Auntie, Gu Anan paused and turned his head to look at Wu Chunhua with an uneasy expression. "Gu Jiangwo, is this how you treat Anan on weekdays?" His wife tugged at his clothes, and Director Yang understood in a second, so he asked Gu Jiangwo in a sharp tone. The long ending made both Gu Jiangwo and Lu Mei's hair tingle. No, 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 no. Gu Jiangwo's voice grew lower and lower, and in the end, he swallowed back the unspoken words. It was precisely because Director Yang's gaze was too sharp, like a knife with a cold edge, which was chilling. Lu Jinping's mother cursed inwardly and then walked forward with a smiling face, reaching out to grab Wu Chuanhua's hand, only to find it empty. She paused and then smiled, saying, "Sister Wu, do you think we have something to say? This kind of thing is really going to be taken to the street, it's not good for anyone. Do you think so? Not good, it's also aimed at your son and Gu Nana. We have nothing to do with Anan." Wu Chunhua didn't buy her at all, his expression was cold, and his tone was even less polite. Jiang Mei, her teeth were almost crushed by her bite. "Have you figured it out? Should we solve it on the spot now or hand it over to the street office?" After a moment, Wu Chunhua said again, her tone extremely stern. "Jiang Mei, I can tell you that although An's mother is no longer here, Lao Yang and I are still here. There's no way to bully her." Jiang Mei was so angry at her words that she felt heartbroken. Her smile dissipated and she gritted her teeth and asked, "So, what should we do about this matter?" The first level of the official college crushed people, and who would let Wu Chuanhua's man be the factory director? So, she and Lao Lu couldn't argue at all. "Humph. I finally said something decent." Wu Chunhua snorted coldly and then pulled Gu Anan with a gentle expression, saying, "Anan, what were your plans for the two of them to mess up? Did you report it to the street office and have it taken away?" Wow. Upon hearing these words, everyone immediately turned to Gu Anan, nervously and anxiously waiting for her answer. "Auntie, I choose to divorce. A man who has been used by another woman and can't control his lower body is not worth me entrusting for life." At this point, Gu Anan suddenly raised his eyes and his gaze swept over Lu Jinping, causing the already nervous individuals to become even more uneasy. Babies, in the new book period, children are still very young and fragile, and we need everyone to take careful care of them. So, how about collecting and recommending a post? Save some milk powder money for your child to grow up. End of this chapter.